We already did the iron. Now we're going to clean the wheels and tires and fender wells. And so this would be step 2 in how I approach a paint correction scenario. So got my bucket. We have Bilthamber HD, so APC right here. Then we have SONAX Full Effect right here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna spray on the APC inside of the fender wells. They're pretty dirty. I'm gonna spray that on there. I'm gonna spray the SONAX wheel cleaner on the wheels. Then I'm gonna agitate and all that good stuff. And the purpose is I don't want, when I go to wash the vehicle, what I don't want is for stuff that's coming off the wheels to land on the paint. Now I have that grit on the paint. So we're gonna avoid all that, and we're going to clean these first. I'll probably hit those steps a little bit. So I'll do all 4. I won't video all 4 because, you know, it's the same process for all 4, but I'm gonna try to give snippets of what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. So after this process, we're gonna be doing a pre-wash on the entire vehicle. So, all right, let's go ahead and get this thing going. So I already pumped this up. It's already filled. It's like a 30% concentration of SURFEX HD in here. I'm putting it on without rinsing anything off first. Supposed to really kind of, it depends on who you ask, but you know, I've put it on kind of wet stuff and non-wet stuff, and either way it works okay. You just don't want it to dry up on you. So let's go ahead and foam this thing down. So I'm gonna get all the way back in here. Hopefully you can see this, but I'm gonna try to get this thing as clean as possible. And what's gonna happen after is I'm going to, by the time I get to the paint correction stage, or after I get done with the paint correction stage, I'm gonna come back over this entire thing, and it's gonna get another thorough wash down, and that'll really get it clean. But this is gonna get us pretty close. Let's get us pretty good. There won't be a whole lot of anything left over after this. So I'm just making sure I'm getting it kind of everywhere. And technically I could use this on the wheels too, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna use the SONAX. And of course I'm using the IK foamer. The only thing I don't like is when it's totally full, you have to pump it a million times. So I'll probably get the battery version. When I get tired enough of pumping, I'll get the battery version, which looks pretty darn slick. In case you're wondering, I'm using a Car Pro Dilute 1 liter sprayer, just in case you're curious. So the plan is I'm gonna go ahead and let this dwell for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna get to scrubbing it. I'm also kind of trying to make sure I get in the inside of the wheel, see if we can really get this thing cleaned up. So we'll give it a couple minutes to dwell. Yeah, if you haven't tried the SONAX Wheel Cleaner Full Effect, yeah, I would recommend it highly. Probably the best wheel cleaner I've used up to this point. If you know of a better one, by all means, please leave a comment in the comment section. So as you can see, maybe there's some purple coming off of here. There's definitely going to be plenty of iron, let's say, especially in there. We already hit kind of the whole thing with iron remover. This is going to take off even more, especially since I'm on the inside as well. So SONAX, you want to leave it 3 to 5 minutes, but don't let it dry. But one of the issues that I do have is it is sunny out. It's pretty warm, pretty darn humid too. So yeah, I'm going to have to pay attention to ensure that it's not drying on the surface. And so far it's still okay. And what I'll do too is I'll just throw a little bit of APC on the tire. Now we're gonna go ahead and scrub this thing down. So I'm gonna start with the fender wells. So I'm using this long brush. That way I can get in here pretty far. I'm not looking for perfection right now, but I do want to knock off as much dirt as possible, of course. The more we get now, the less we'll have to worry about it later. So, but as you can see, there's all kinds of dirt coming off of here. Wow. Yeah, it's pretty bad. As a matter of fact, it's so bad, I'm gonna throw a little bit more APC in here. These fender wells have maybe never been cleaned before, I'm not sure, but they're bad. Real bad. Absolutely filthy bad, to be honest. But like I said, this will get it pretty good. Knock off a majority of the stuff, and then when I go back over it, get a lot more detailed with what I'm doing. And I'll use some little different tools. Even scrub the frame just a pinch. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and scrub these wheels down. So I'm trying to get in the barrel as well, as much as possible. These are nice, open kind of wheels, so I can get back there pretty easily. Yeah, this thing's probably never had a once over. I think it's just been used, which is okay. If that's what people want to do, it's their prerogative. I'm not gonna judge, even though I think it needs to be clean. But I know not everybody's into this kind of thing. I personally like my stuff to be as clean as possible, as often as possible. So I'm using kind of different brushes. I may or may not be scrubbing down these, or not scrubbing down. I may or may not be polishing these wheels. So this is a handy little tool. It's great for getting into the lug nut areas. Normally, I do this every time, so eventually inside of there, it'll get so clean that there won't be any junk sitting in there at all. So we're not necessarily aiming for perfection at this point, but we do want to get it pretty clean, so that's what we're doing. See if I can get this little one in here by the brake caliper a little better. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, a little bit. Okay, and actually, I might be able to get all the way through on these. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Those are gonna be the trouble areas for sure. So as you can see, there's a lot of dirt coming off of here. My GoPro is overheating, so I get as much of this as I can. And but I think you get the gist. And if you have any questions, drop your comments in the comment section down below, and I will answer them for sure. So there's a little after of the fender well. It's still wet, but still probably give you a little bit of an idea. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and do the steps while I'm at it. Get those nice and clean. Just to give it some perspective here. So I wouldn't say they're horrible, but definitely not gonna hurt to clean them up a bit. Besides a bit worse. So we're gonna tackle all of this and the exhaust tip and the wheel, and of course the steps on this side. Here's the other fender well. It's a little dirty. I would imagine back up in there. Yeah, this thing probably hasn't been, I don't know if it's ever been scrubbed up in there, so this will be interesting. Current condition of the wheels. So okay, I'm going to carry on, and then the next step of the process I'm going to be doing is I will foam down the entire vehicle as a pre-rinse, and then I'm going to go ahead and rinse the thing down, and then I'm going to go in for a contact wash and clay bar. So I will take more footage as I go along. So one area that I forgot to mention that we're going to do is the gas cap area. This may not have ever been cleaned either, so we're going to go ahead and use our Bilthamber SURFEX HD. I'm just going to foam it straight on there. I'm going to put all kinds of foam in there. No foam never hurt anybody. In this case, I don't care if the foam gets all over the body because it's all gonna get worked on too. All kinds of good foam going on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and agitate. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here a bit. Make sure we get all along all the edges. So SURFEX alone will take off a majority of the stuff, a little agitation, and it really doesn't take a lot. It gets off a lot of stuff. This stuff's amazing. It's what I would call one of the areas that I think is pretty fun. They need to get a smaller brush to get in between. Yeah. See all the grime that's coming out of there. It's still wet, but just give me an idea of what we're looking at. Not sure what this is. So that's a chip. Yeah, pretty good. It's just thin paint, a little bit of leftover dirt, so I'll hit it one more time and that'll be it. Okay, let's see what we got so far. So there's the fender well, wheels. They're okay, they need to be cleaned much more, but better. Went ahead and scrubbed these steps. So these are gonna get restored. Gas cap area. Looking good. And then the other side is more of the same. Same thing, it's not perfect, but we did knock off a majority of the junk. Got this little tip a little bit. Let's see if we can get it. Okay, there we go. So clean that a little bit. It's gonna get more. Those steps got it. And last but not least, here's the last one that I did. It's gonna get cleaned up a lot more, but yeah, it's a pretty solid start. So for the next stage, we're going to be doing a pre-rinse or a pre-wash, and I'm using Auto Foam by Bilthamber for that in a 5% PIR. So I already have everything mixed up in the bottle here, and let's get to it. Okay, so the purpose of this particular part of it is to get off as much dirt and whatnot as possible. As you can see, there's a lot of dirt on here. I want to do this before I go into the contact wash and the clay bar. So goal here, some people might call it overkill. I think it's the right thing to do, is when I go to the clay bar part of it, I don't want to add more scratches to the paint. So we're going to let it dwell for a minute. Areas like we're looking at in here, you can see all kinds of dirt and grime and junk. And by the time it's all said and done, all of that will get cleaned and we'll have a nice pretty surface to work with. I've made an executive decision to go ahead and detail out the engine bay prior to anything. If I'm going all the way, that would be my typical thing to do. So for that, I'm going to use SURFEX HD by Bilthamber. I'm going to foam it up, clean it, all of that. I'll get all this debris out of there. As you can see, hopefully you can see, this thing's really filthy. So this is not going to be okay when everything else is going to be so polished, including the headlights. I'm also going to do those. They're not so bad, but there is some oxidation. So I'm going to go ahead and polish those out, get them all pretty and protect them and do it the right way. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, hopefully you can see the thing's really dirty. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle that next. I'm gonna go ahead and foam the entire area, down in here, the entire underneath the hood, all up in here. Hopefully you can see all down in here. And I ran the vehicle earlier, so I sprayed a little bit of water on there just to cool it down a little bit. Actually, the radiator's a little bit warm, so I may spray a little bit more on there. Quick disclosure, I highly recommend covering up sensitive electronics on an engine if you're gonna do it this way. My confidence level is high that if there is an issue, I can fix it, and it's my vehicle, therefore I'm not going to cover anything. However, if I do a customer's vehicle, of course I cover up all the sensitive electronics. Let's go ahead and foam this thing down. We're gonna use the IK foamer, and I'm using a 30% dilution ratio of the Bilthamber SURFEX HD. Let's do this. It's also been my experience that typically I have to go over something. If it's at this level of dirt, I'm gonna have to go over it twice. So just keep that in mind. And what you're probably gonna see is a whole bunch of dirt coming off of here. So it's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine to get the areas, well, actually everything, but to get areas that are typically maybe not given a lot of attention to give them a lot of attention. In this case, the battery. Oil filler neck, valve covers, all that stuff. It's powerful. I've never had an issue with it on anything, no matter what the dilution ratio is. So my confidence level is pretty high that it's gonna come out pretty good. Now let's go ahead and rinse. Okay, so let's take a quick look here. It's still wet, but we can at least get an idea of what we're looking at. Looks like I'm missing this, so I'll pick up one of those. Once it dries, we'll get a better view, but not bad, not bad. So there's some areas, some kind of deeper areas that I'll focus on once it dries, and I can really see what we have going on here. Let's let it dry and then we'll go from there. Okay, moving on to the next part of the process. I'm actually gonna do the clay bar next, but I figured I'd show you the engine compartment really quick. I haven't put any dressing on it. Everything's pretty much dry by now. There's a pinch of water maybe here and there, but that's about it. But I would say it came out pretty darn good. Moving on to the clay bar. So what I'm gonna be using is a solution I made up. So it's water and a little bit of car wash soap. In this case, it's Voodoo Ride. Not my favorite soap, but all I need is a lubricant, and that's what I'm gonna use. So yeah, about a tablespoon of soap and the rest with just regular water. I am gonna be going back over this to polish it, otherwise I'd be probably going a little different method, but I am gonna be polishing afterwards, so I'm not overly concerned. Got my clay bar here, have it kind of shaped a little bit, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spray this down. Spray it down real well. And all this is for lubricity. We just don't want this dragging along the surface. We want it to glide smoothly. So let's go ahead and start. Just do this little section right here. Just give you an idea of kind of what I'm doing. All I'm doing is rubbing it along the surface. And I've found I've used clay luber and I've used all kinds of different products for this. I haven't found that clay lube works any better than what I'm doing right here. And it doesn't cost you much. So you can see I'm already pulling up contaminants. So the residue that's left over after this is pretty much just gonna be soap and a little bit of dirt. And since I'm gonna be cleaning it afterwards as well, we're not concerned about that. I always like to make sure that I've got plenty of fluid on there, just so I'm not dragging it on the surface rather than just pulling up the contaminants. And like I said before, I do not do this on every single car wash. So you will scratch the paint regardless of what anybody tells you. You will be scratching the paint, and it doesn't make sense to me to scratch up the paint if you're not going to follow it up and polish those scratches out. It just doesn't make sense. And in the years that I've been detailing, that's something that I've kind of adapted to is to be more of a purist, I would say. Don't do things that are going to damage things unless the customer specifically wants that and you explain to them that you're going to be scratching the paint. That might be something they're okay with, and if they are, then I would probably go ahead and do it. Other than that, as a rule, I do not do it. Of course, without a follow-up. That's what I mean. So because I did the iron out and I was thorough with my pre-wash, a lot of the dirt is not on the surface anymore. So this is kind of, I would say, pretty close to best case scenario if you're going to be clay barring something. There are clay mitts as well. I've used them. I'm not a fan. They scratch even worse than clay bars in every instance that I've used them. So I'm gonna stick with traditional clay, make sure I turn it. That's what I do. And I'm guessing I'm gonna ruffle a few feathers by saying all this, but by all means, I want to be transparent in how I do things and what works best for me. I'm the kind of person that if it doesn't make sense to me, regardless of what everybody says, then I'm not gonna do it. And it's based on experience, nothing else. Had I not experienced it, then I wouldn't know any better, and I would just go out and buy a $10 or $20 bottle of some sort of clay lube and use that and be none the wiser. And I may catch some flack on that. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this thing out and then come back after to show you the results. So we'll see you soon. Moving on in the next stage of the process, we're going to be polishing these headlights, and you can see there's plenty of oxidation here, up in here, down in here there's quite a bit. There's a lot of scratching, which is probably going to be a little difficult to see, but hopefully you kind of get the gist. So from a distance, they don't look horrible. Let's go take a peek at the other one. Yeah, I mean, to me they look horrible. A lot of yellowing around here. Same with up here, there's a lot of oxidation. Plan is to restore these things back to as close to brand new as possible, and we'll probably get them pretty darn close. Tools I'm going to be using are GYEON Prep. I'm going to use this for wiping in between stages. It's an alcohol-based product that typically you would use before you would ceramic coat a car. I have some microfiber rags. These are some of my, let's call it miscellaneous rags. I don't want to use my great rags for this, except for this orange one. And then sandpaper, so I'm going to go ahead and hand sand it rather than machine sand it. Also tape, so I'm going to tape off the entire surface around this so that I can really polish and not have to worry about the chrome or the paint or anything else. So let's do this. Starting with the taping, I have a couple of different sizes here that I'm going to use. This is automotive tape, so it doesn't really leave sticky residue, and if it does, it's very, very minimal. So at this point, I'm trying to, where I can, I'm trying to slide the tape underneath the groove right here. And that'll go for the entire headlight. So if you're gonna do this on your own, just make sure that you cover all the areas where there's paint, because we don't want any those areas. It doesn't necessarily have to be beautiful. However, I am going to put an extra layer on. I should have grabbed another roll of the thicker tape, but that's okay. This will be fine. Okay. One nice piece right here. Okay, so starting out, I'm going to go ahead and spray this down with a bit of cleaner. So kind of wipe off the surface, get any kind of dust or anything off of there. Oils and stuff. Next I have some 1000 grit sandpaper. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spray the surface, I'll spray the surface some more, sand, wipe, and the goal is going to be to scuff up the entire surface so that it's all even with the 1000 grit. Then I'm gonna move to 1500. And this right here, this is water, and there's a teeny tiny little bit of soap, and all you're doing is you're trying to keep the pores from getting clogged up by the residue that you're pulling off. So if you don't use water with this particular sandpaper, it will clog the pores and then it'll be useless. So that's why we're using water. In this case, a little bit of soapy water, which is okay. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in straight lines on top, on the side, and here, and underneath. I'm gonna go in the same direction the whole way. So if you look, you can see oxidation and dirt and junk coming off of there. So the amount of pressure I'm putting on is it's a decent amount. When I'm not doing this thing in the same spot, I don't want to get high and low spots. So I want to keep it. If I can get this to work like this. So the goal here, again, is to get this entire surface with the same exact look. So go ahead and take a look right now. Go ahead and wipe it down. This will be a pretty good indicator I got through everything. So a lot of people will go with a more aggressive sandpaper, and you can. It just needs to be refined a little bit more. If they're super bad, I will go to a more coarse grit and get everything just right, then move on to the next grit. But when you make the scratches with that more coarse grit, then of course you have to polish those out with another grit paper. So as you can see, it's less yellow and it's more, I don't want to say clear, but more milky looking. So I think we're getting down to where we want to be, which is one even surface with oxidation and prior scratches removed. So it's probably not picking it up on camera, but I can kind of see a little better where I need to go a little bit more. You can also use a block, and sometimes I will. It just depends on the headlight. If you're not overly confident with using your fingers the way I'm doing it, you can always put it on a block and try to block sand it, or multiple blocks to try to block sand it. Alright, let's see what we got. Let it dry for a second. And of course I'm going to flip my towel so I'm not using the same side when I wipe it. Okay, so I had to change my method of recording. The GoPro was getting too hot, so I went in and switched out. Alright, so I don't know if you can see this, but it's looking pretty consistent. I can see a little bit of what looks like, they definitely used clear coat on this before, so I see orange peel kind of up in here, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that and a little bit over in here. And other than that, it's pretty good. So I'm going to keep going here. So the next step up for me is going to be 1500 grit. A lot of people will jump higher. This right here means I'm going to have to work less to refine it to 1500. Then I'll move to 2000, and then I'll move forward from there. So a lot of people you'll see they'll jump a little bit more. You just have to sand a little bit more. If you go from say 1000 to 2000, this means that to remove the scratches that you left over from the last ones and get them down to whatever grit you're using, this will take more time on that. However, it's less steps. So really that's up to the person that's working on them. But I will say that I typically do this method. Sometimes I'll switch it up. It just depends on the headlights and the condition of them. Sometimes I'll start with 1500 or 2000 because they're pretty much brand new. They just have minor surface defects. So I'll go ahead and start with a little higher grit, or should I say a finer grit. Wipe down, see what we got. Make sure you flip your towel just in case there's grit from the other towel, or you just grab a new towel. You want to be 100% certain in case you forget what side of the towel you used. Okay, so pretty dry. There's still a couple spots that are wet. Looking at it, it's looking pretty good. Looks very consistent. So next we're moving on to 2000 grit. So as you can see, it's starting to, I want to say it's starting to look more clear, but still a little wet down there, but really refining it at this point. Drill it one more time just to get a couple spots. Actually, I'm going to drill the whole thing, but I don't need to drill too much. See it really starting to clear up. Yeah, you can see it starting to come through now. Sanding marks left over from the last. It all looks very consistent. Next step I'm going to do is 3000. Again, some people stop way before here. I'm going to go ahead and take it to 3000 myself because that's what I like to do. And the results I get are incredible. So, cool. Here we go. You can really see the clarity coming through. And when we go to our final step, which is going to be polishing, it'll really bring out the shine. I mean, big time. So as you can see, that really refines it. Let's see what we got. Put your towel. Make sure you put your towel. You don't want to add scratches to this. That you're gonna have to sand out. And some people won't care. Other people will care if they have little blemishes. So we're gonna let it dry for a minute. See, it's pretty good. I'll go over just a little bit more. Pretty good. And let it dry. The next part of the process, we're going to use my Rupes polisher. And we're going to be using 3M Perfected. So this would be stage 3 of their 3-stage kit. This is the ultrafine machine polish. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the main surfaces, and then I'm going to come back with my smaller Rupes and polish up the top and probably the bottom. Typically I just put 3 dots on there. Because I have so much on there right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press it onto the surface. I'm going to spread it around a little bit prior to polishing. We'll put on speed 3. And now I'm going to take one of my soft microfibers. Let's wipe the surface. Let's see what we got. This looks beautiful. So I will continue with this. Actually, we're going to do something else. So because I can see just a teeny tiny bit of very fine micro scratches, I'm going to go with stage 2 of the 3M Perfected. See if we can get a little bit more clear even. See how this looks. Yeah, that's a little better combination. And really, you could spend hours polishing these things to perfection. This is going to get pretty darn good, and they're going to stay that way. Another thing too to maybe mention is with Rupes pads, this right here would be kind of the medium pad. They also have a white pad. The white pads can generate more heat because there's more surface area. You're welcome, Todd. And it's Todd from Rupes. So in this case, I'm using yellow, and I need to be careful not to put too much pressure on this and cause it to heat up too much. Plus, it's really warm outside. It's a little bit warm right now. I'm going to give it a second to cool down a little bit. I'm also going to turn down my speed. I was on 3. I'm going to go down to about 2. Quite an improvement, I'll tell you that. I'd say they look as good as new. I'll go ahead and finish the rest of these things up. Hopefully that's picking it up on film here. That thing's like crystal clear. In my final stage, after I'm done with all the polishing, I'm going to come back and I'm going to put ceramic coating over it to keep UV rays off it, kind of help protect the surface a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'll do a follow-up. So in 6 months, we'll look at them and see what kind of condition they're in. year, and we'll keep doing that every 6 months to see what kind of longevity we get. But because we removed the surface, we got it so flat and there's so few scratches in it, well, that you can see, but the naked eye, they're probably going to last for quite some time. Okay, that's all there is to it. Just do what I just did and you'll get the same result. It takes a little bit of practice to kind of refine your skill sets, but anybody can do it. Just a matter of getting the courage and doing it. Just take it slow, and it's not a race, and you're doing it on your vehicle. Yeah, the surface is just glorious. Okay, so I'll move on to the next one, and then when I get ready to ceramic coat, I will go ahead and video that as well. Now we're going to move on to the iBrid Nano, made by Rupes, and it's one of their newer polishers. We're going to do the same thing as we did on the last one, except for I'm going to use way less paste, and I'm going to get into the areas that I couldn't get into with the larger polisher. Turn the speed way down. So I don't have it on dual action, I just have it on straight, and then of course I have a shaft. So you have to be really careful so you don't turn or melt. And the pad that I'm using on this is a Rupes pad, and yellow for the same reason I was using yellow on the other one. Again, the microfiber towels that I'm using are, this is from the Rag Company. These are ultra plush, so you don't have to worry about scratching anything as long as by all means drop it and do nothing. So there you go, looks good, I'm happy. Now I'm going to move on to the other side and then come back for this when I'm ready for the ceramic. I promise we're going to go ahead and do the ceramic coating, and to start with, we're going to fresh clean microfiber towel. We're going to use some GYEON Prep. We're going to spray it down. We're going to make sure that there's no oils or any kind of debris on the headlight. Can't stress how important this part of the process is. Very, very important. And the ceramic that we're going to be using is GYEON MOHS, which backwards is show. But anyway, it's GYEON MOHS. So we're going to be using, I have a GYEON applicator. So to get proper coverage, I'm going to go across it, up and down, and I'm going to make sure it's all leveled out. So I'm going to start here. Okay, now we're going to give it a minute to flash. Okay, now we're going to take our clean microfiber towel. All I'm going to do now is wipe it off. And what's left behind is going to be a nicely ceramic coated headlight. I think it looks absolutely stellar.